Good morning, everyone. We have seen with simple examples methanol and methyl chloride that how the mass to charge ratio for an analyte is assigned using a mass spectrometer. Now, continuing our discussion on various components of a mass spectrometer, we have studied that a typical mass spectrometer has four important components, and in today's session we will try to understand the working principle of each of these components. We know that in mass spectrometer we produce ions from the sample in the ionization source or the chamber, and then we separate these ions according to their mass to charge ratio, and this happens in the mass analyzer, and then fragment the selected ions. Following that is the analysis of the fragments, and this takes place in a second analyzer or subsequent analyzers, and then we detect the ions coming out from the last analyzer in a row, and then we measure their abundance with the detector, and this detector converts the ions into electrical signals. Then we process the signals from the detector that are transmitted to the computer, and then the entire system through a feedback mechanism is controlled. So a mass spectrometer always contains the following elements, that is a sample inlet to introduce the analyte. For example, a gas chromatograph or a direct insertion probe. So mass analyzer attached to a gas chromatograph, that is GCMS, is abbreviated as GCMS, that is it is read as gas chromatograph mass spectrometer. So this can serve as a sample or the analyte inlet, or you can have a direct insertion probe which pumps the analyte into the ionization source. Then the ionization source produce ions from the analyte, and we can have one analyzer or several mass analyzers, so that count the ions with a detector emerging from the last analyzer, and finally we see a data processing system that produces the mass spectrum in a suitable or readable format. So typically a mass spectrometer should always perform the functions that is given in this slide: produce ions, separate ions, fragment ions, detect the ions, and a good readable spectral format should be produced. So all mass spectrometers must function under high vacuum. that is low pressure. Why it is necessary? So this allows ions to reach the detector without undergoing collisions with other gaseous molecules. What happens if you see collisions with other molecules? Indeed, collisions would produce a deviation of the trajectory, that is the path, and the ion would lose its charge against the walls of the instrument. Your detector and the mass analyzer analyze and detect based on mass to charge ratio. So if you observe any collisions, then that would produce a deviation of the trajectory or the path, and the ion would lose its charge. If it loses its charge, then mass to charge ratio analysis is not possible. And second thing is, that is on the other hand, ion molecule collisions could produce unwanted reactions, and if there are unwanted reactions, that increases the complexity of the spectrum that is given as an output. So first thing is, if there are any collisions, that would produce a deviation of the trajectory and the ions would lose its charge. Second thing is, ion molecule collisions could produce unwanted reactions, thus increasing the complexity of the spectrum. So that is the reason why all mass spectrometers must function under high vacuum, so that the ions reach the detector without undergoing collisions with any of the other gaseous molecules. The sample must be introduced into the ionization chamber or the source, so that the vacuum inside the instrument remains unchanged. So you are trying to introduce the sample or the analyte into the ionization source, but vacuum inside the instrument should remain unchanged. So samples are introduced without compromising the vacuum using direct infusion or direct insertion method. So there are two methods to introduce the sample or the analyte into the ionization source without compromising the vacuum, because vacuum is a must. Why it is a must? It allows the ions to reach the detector without undergoing collisions. And I said, if there are any collisions, that would produce a deviation in the path and the ion would lose its charge. And second thing, it may produce unwanted reaction which increases the complexity of the spectrum that is given as an output. You cannot analyze using the spectrum because too many peaks, unwanted peaks will appear. So vacuum must be maintained throughout. High vacuum is a must. So no compromise in maintaining the vacuum in mass spectrometer. Then how to introduce the sample? There are two methods. Number one, direct infusion method. Number two, direct insertion method. For direct infusion, as you can read, a capillary is employed to introduce the sample as a gas or a solution. So this is the one of the method to introduce the analyte or the sample into the ionization source without compromising the vacuum. That means the vacuum inside the instrument remains unchanged. What we are doing in direct infusion. In this method, a capillary is employed to introduce the sample or the analyte as a gas or a solution. Right. In case of direct insertion, the sample is placed on a probe, a plate or a target that is then inserted into the ionization source through a vacuum interlock. So basically we have two methods to introduce the sample into the ionization source. A capillary is employed to introduce the sample as a gas or a solution in direct infusion method, or the sample is placed on a probe or a plate or a target that is then pushed or inserted into the ionization source through a vacuum interlock in case of direct insertion method. For the sources that work at atmospheric pressure, so they are known as atmospheric pressure ionization sources. We do have such mass spectrometers which work under atmospheric pressure. So the ionization sources of such instruments, they are called as atmospheric pressure ionization sources. And introduction of the sample is easy because the complicated procedure for sample introduction into the high vacuum of the mass spectrometer is not there, or it is removed. Right. So two methods: direct infusion and direct insertion. That is what it has to be kept in mind. This is for insertion or introducing the analyte into the ionization source. So briefing about the ion sources used in a mass spectrometer. In the ion sources, the analyzed or the samples that are or that has to be analyzed, so they have to be ionized prior to analysis in mass spectrometer. So a variety of ionization techniques are used for ionizing the sample. So you have some considerations for ionizing the sample. The most important considerations are: number one, the internal energy transferred during the ionization process, and number two, the physico-chemical properties of the analyte that can be ionized. So these are the important considerations before ionizing the sample in the ionization source of a mass spectrometer. That is, the internal energy transferred during the ionization process, and number two, the physico-chemical properties of the analyte that can be ionized. And we know that some ionization techniques are very energetic and they cause extensive fragmentation. If the ionization process is very much energetic, definitely you can expect extensive fragmentation. Other techniques are available which are softer and only produce ions of the molecular species. So you have hard ionization techniques and soft ionization technique. All this depends upon the type of the analyte that needs to be analyzed. So hard ionization techniques, that is, they are very much energetic and they cause extensive fragmentation, and softer techniques are available, they only produce ions of the molecular species. We have electron ionization, chemical ionization and field ionization, which are only suitable for gas phase ionization, and thus their use is limited to compounds sufficiently volatile and thermally stable. Right. So some of the techniques are energetic and they cause extensive fragmentation, and some other techniques are softer, they produce only ions of the molecular species. As example, we have electron ionization, chemical ionization, field ionization, which are very much suitable for gas phase ionization, and thus they are limited, or their use is limited to compounds which are sufficiently volatile and thermally stable. So analyte should be volatile and thermally it should be stable. So if that is the case, then you can use electron ionization or chemical ionization or field ionization methods or the techniques. However, we find a large number of compounds that are thermally labile or do not have sufficient vapor pressure. So what to do? In these cases, or the molecules of these compounds must be directly extracted from the condensed state to the gas phase. These direct ion sources exist under two types. That is, number one, liquid phase ion source and solid state ion source. So in liquid phase ion source, the analyte is in solution. Right? In solid state ion source, the analyte is in an involatile deposit. So as I said, what happens if the molecules are thermally labile and if they do not have sufficient vapor pressure? So these, or the molecules of these compounds, must be directly extracted from the condensed state to the gas phase. So we have two types, that is liquid phase ion source and solid state ion source. In liquid phase ion source, the analyte is in solution, and in solid state ion source, the analyte is in an involatile deposit. What happens in liquid phase ion source, where the analyte is in solution? This solution is introduced by nebulization, that is, as droplets into the ionization source, where ions are produced at atmospheric pressure and they are focused into the mass spectrometer through some vacuum pumping stages. Right? That means the analyte is in solution. So this solution is introduced by nebulization, that is in the form of droplets. Nebulization, it is not a new word. You might have heard in many of the clinical studies where people are given nebulization, they use nebulizers. So it is a method to produce the droplets. So similarly, we see the nebulization happening in mass spectrometer sample introduction stage, where the droplets are introduced into the source, where the ions are produced at atmospheric pressure because they are thermally labile and they do not have sufficient vapor pressure. So these ions then are focused into the mass spectrometer through some vacuum pumping stages. So we have electrospray method, atmospheric pressure chemical ionization method, and atmospheric pressure photoionization method. So all the three methods correspond to this type of ion sources or ionization sources: electrospray, atmospheric pressure chemical ionization, and atmospheric pressure photoionization. So in solid state ion sources, where the analyte is in an involatile deposit, here it is obtained by various preparation methods which frequently involve the introduction of a matrix, a compound that can be either a solid or a viscous fluid. So both these methods, that is liquid phase ion source and the solid state ion source, both these are true or applicable when the molecules are thermally labile and when they do not have sufficient vapor pressure, because our orientation will be more on this in the future discussion. So in case of solid state ion source, where we see the analyte is an involatile deposit, that means we actually deposit the analyte in an involatile compound. We call that as a matrix that can be either a solid or a viscous fluid. So this deposit is then irradiated. So this deposit is exposed to radiation. It is irradiated by energetic particles or photons that desorb ions near the surface of the deposit. Right? So it cannot penetrate deep into the deposit. Only it can desorb, pull out the ions that are near the surface of the deposit. And then after desorption, these ions can be extracted by an electrical field and focused towards the analyzer. Examples are MALDI, that is matrix assisted laser desorption. That is why we have the terminology desorption, laser desorption. That means the energetic particles are used, laser irradiation is used to desorb the ions from the surface of the deposit. So you have the analyte which is mixed with this matrix, and the matrix is involatile. We call the process as deposition of the analyte in a matrix, and this matrix can be either solid or a viscous fluid. And when you irradiated the matrix with energetic particles, the ions are desorbed near the surface of the deposit, and these radiations cannot pass deep into the matrix. Only the surface ions near the surface, they are extracted by an appropriate electric field, and then we focus them towards the mass analyzer. So we have the matrix assisted laser desorption, that is MALDI, as an example, and then we have secondary ion mass spectrometry, plasma desorption, and field desorption sources. All of these strategies are available to produce ions. Right. So what we have discussed is the sample introduction without compromising the vacuum. We have direct infusion and direct insertion. And coming to the ion source, the important considerations are internal energy that is transferred and the physicochemical properties of the analyte that has to be ionized. And we have observed that some of the ionization techniques are very energetic, they cause extensive fragmentation, and some of the techniques are softer, which produce only the ions from their respective molecular species. So as an example, we have electron ionization, chemical and field ionization, which are limited to the compounds which are sufficiently volatile and thermally stable. And for thermally labile and which do not have sufficient vapor pressure, we have two methods to extract the ions: liquid phase ion source and solid state ion source. In liquid phase ion source, the analyte is in solution, so we use the technique of nebulization, where the droplets are introduced into the source and then the ions are produced. Then they are focused into the mass spectrometer. And in solid state, we have the matrix, which is either a solid or a viscous fluid, and then it is irradiated with an appropriate energetic particles or photons, that these are the ions near the surface of the deposit, and the ions are extracted by an electric field. Then they are focused towards the analyzer. Right. We will try to understand the electron ionization source, which is very much important, and it is also an example for high energy ionization technique. This electron ionization, or the EI source, was formerly called as electron impact ionization technique, and it was widely used in mass spectrometry. Now also you find this technique, especially with respect to the analysis of some of the small molecules. Usually we don't see this method or the electron ionization method being used with respect to proteins, peptides, or any other biological molecule. This ionization technique works very well for the gas phase molecules. So what you can expect? Extensive fragmentation, so that the molecular ions are not always observed. So that is a reason why this particular electron ionization method is not used for most of the biological samples, because it works very well for many gas phase molecules, but it induces extensive fragmentation. So as you can see in the figure, this source consists of a filament heater, and then we have electron accelerating potential, then an inlet for the gaseous sample, because it works well with gas phase molecules, and then we have an electron trajectory or the path, and that particular box refers to a ionization space where the ions are created, and these ions, they pass through the extracting lens, focusing lens, accelerating lens, and then to the analyzer. So this is a diagram of a typical electron ionization source. Here the gases and samples with very high vapor pressure are introduced directly into the source. Liquids and solids are usually heated to increase the vapor pressure for analysis. Right. So I'll stop my discussion over here. We can continue our discussion in the next session. Thank you very much.